Hey guys, my name is Max. Thanks for tuning in the channel. It's Saturday, and that means it's time for another top 20 high yield ETFs of the week. Stick around and we'll get right in the middle of it. Coming in at number 20, we have EGGY, E-G-G-Y. This is from Nest Yield. Now, Nest Yield has two of their ETFs on the list this week, which is very impressive. Good job, Nest Yield. EGGY had a yield of 14.7% on an annualized basis, and they compared that with a 10.8% NAV upside or NAV return. So the NAV return is exclusive of the yield. That's impressive to make 10%, not even including the yield. So that you know that their total return is going to be it's the NAV return plus the yield. So it's going to be very impressive. Now this NAV return is just for a quarter. So but in any event, if this held up for a year, what would that be? It'd be a 40% NAV return. And if this held up for a year, it'd be a 14% dividend return. That'd be really impressive at 54% total return for the year. Now, I'm not expecting us to have three more quarters just like this last quarter, but this last quarter has been one for the record books. All right, next we have Chippy. Now, Chippy is from YieldMax, and it's a portfolio of semiconductor stocks. Chippy's doing a nice job, paying a 36% yield, and it got 5% NAV return just this quarter. It's not too bad at all. We'll take it. Coming in at number 18, we have EGGS, eggs. This is also from Nest Yield. These guys got 13% yield on an annualized basis. Combine that with a 13% NAV return for the quarter. Pretty good. Next, we have Biggie, only yielding 9.8%, but had really good NAV return at 10% and is also very balanced and fairly low vol and has fairly low volatility for these high yield funds. Volatility is another factor in here. All right. Coming in at number 16, we have Goop. This is a good one. This is based on Google high yield fund that yields about 16%, and it has a NAV upside this quarter of 13.59. Coming into number 15, we have Soxy. Now, Soxy is from YieldMax, and it's a semiconductor. It's based on it's a target fund with semiconductors in it. It has about a 9% yield, almost 10% actually. But it got a lot of NAV upside at 20%. In fact, it has the highest NAV upside of anything on the list so far. Good job, Soxy. Coming to number 14, we have CLM from Cornerstone. Well, this is one that's very popular with a lot of folks, especially with folks that are living the FIRE lifestyle. Now, this is a good and balanced fund. CLM is yielding 15.69% and has a total return, or not a total return, has a NAV return of 14% just for the quarter. Very good. CLM, it should be noted, is a closed-end fund. It's from Cornerstone. They also have an extra bonus called rights offerings, and the rights offerings are not factored in here. So if you're a CLM fan, I'm sorry, but I don't have a way to factor the rights offering in here. I can just all I look at for the max factor is the yield and the NAV return and the relative safety or volatility. All right. Coming in number 13, we have PLTW from Roundhill. Boy, this is a good one. This is based on Palantir. Now, these guys have paid about a 52, almost 53% yield on an annualized basis. That's really good, especially when you consider it has a 15% NAV return just for the past 3 months. It's still not as good as Soxy's 20%. But of course, Soxy didn't pay that high of a yield. And if you saw my video from this morning, you understand that a high yield is a tax on the NAV's upside. Okay, coming into number 12, we have COIW. Wow, now this one is a good one, and it's based on Coinbase. This one was a lot higher earlier in the week, but Coinbase had some bad earnings, and it affected COIW as well. But still, look at this. It has 56% yield and 37% NAV return. That's incredible. We have a new NAV return champion. COIW has now unseated Soxy. Coming in at number 11, we have OARC from YieldMax. This is based on a high yield synthetic high yield covered call fund based on ARC. This thing has about a 47% annualized yield and 12.83% NAV return for the past 3 months. Great job. Coming in at number 10, we have one of my favorites, and it's one of the larger holdings in my model portfolio. It's GPTY. Now, GPTY has a yield of about 32%. That's really good. And they have 14.8% NAV return. Great job. Coming in at number 9, we have MSFY. Okay, this one, I'm sorry, this one used to be number 1, but I had an error in my calculations. And I apologize. I fixed the error in the calculations, and you can't keep a good ETF down. And look at this thing. It's still number 9. Now, for those of you that are MSFY fans, it didn't do anything bad. It just dropped because of the error in the formula. It was number 1 for a while, but it didn't deserve to be number 1. But it was, unfortunately, I ranked it number 1. All right, so that's number 9. And look at this thing getting nearly 21% NAV return. That's really good. Still not as good as COIW getting a 37% NAV return. That's our NAV champion right now is COIW. And COIW is also our current yield champion. COIW is ahead in both categories. All right, number 8 is Carvani, CVNY. Now we have a new yield champion. Carvani's yielding nearly 81% and combining it with a 15% NAV return. Great job, Carvani. Number 7 is QDTY. QDTY from YieldMax is a synthetic covered call fund and they sell 0DT covered calls. Great job, QDTY. Yielding 27% with a NAV return of nearly 11%. Coming in at number 6, we have TSMY. Now, TSMY is yielding 47% and has better NAV return than QDTY, has 12%, where QDTY just had 11%. Great job, TSMY. Coming in at number 5, we have SMCY. Now, look at this. We have a new NAV champion, a yield champion. 130%. That's a lot of yield. As you know, I always say that a high yield is a tax on the upside, and it is, but this thing still managed to eke out 13% NAV return, even with that high of a yield. That's incredible, and that's why it's number 5 on the list. Coming in at number 4, we have LFGY. Great job, LFGY. LFGY has 72.5% yield, combined with a 15% NAV return. That's a really good combination. Full disclosure, LFGY is one of my other largest holdings in my high yield portfolio. Great job, LFGY. Number 3, we have NVDY. NVDY from YieldMax. This is a good one. This thing yields 75% on an annualized basis, and it got 16% NAV return for the quarter, even more than LFGY. And LFGY is no slouch at 15%. Great job, guys. The NAV champion is still the NAV champion is still COIW at 37%. COIW was unseated as the yield champion by several of them, by QDTY and then by Carvani, and now SMCY is unseated Carvani. All right, this is getting into some pretty rarefied air. Let's see who number 2 is. Number 2, NVDW from our friends at Roundhill. Great job. Now, this one yielded about half of what NVDY did. NVDY yielded 75%. This yields 37%. However, NVDW has more than twice the upside of NVDY. NVDY got 16% NAV upside. NVDW got 46% NAV upside. We have a new NAV upside champion. Now, that's a hard combo to beat right there. Let's compare NVDW to NVDY. Which one would you rather have? There's no really right or wrong answer. And also, this is based on the last quarter. This isn't saying what's going to happen in the next quarter, but let's just compare them and let's line them up against each other for the quarter. I'm going to tell you right now that I think NVDW probably has higher total return. But let's take a look at it, and we'll take a look at it and see. And I'm going to tell you this, NVDW is definitely going to have higher NAV return because it has a lower yield. All right, this is for the last quarter. Sure enough, NVDW is awesome, and NVDW's NAV return is definitely higher. Like I said, it would. It went from 34 to 50, and that's just because it has a lower yield when you're comparing the two. So that's a no-brainer. But you combine what they did pay at 37% yield with the NAV return they did get, which was a lot, going from 34 to 50 in a quarter. That's incredible. And you come up with a total return of 62%, which annualizes to 250%. I mean, that's something else. Now, NVDY has a little bit less, but let's take a look at it. It got decent NAV return going from 1468 to 1706. That's pretty good NAV return. It paid a really good yield, and that combines to make a total return of 38.89%. And that goes to make a annualized gain of 154%. I would take either one of them, 154% or 248%. I would say if you needed more yield, you might be interested in NVDY. If you were more concerned about NAV return, you might be interested in NVDW. All right, coming in at number one, what do you guys think it is? Number one, oh, this is a good one, AMDY. Would you take a look at this? Now, this thing yielded 75%, and it compared it with a NAV return of 28%. Even looking at AMDY against NVDY, which is also a great fund at number three, they had the same yield. So why is AMDY number one? Well, look, it had a lot more NAV return. That's really good. AMDY is our number one fund of the week. Let's just compare AMDY to NVDY. Number one versus number three. Boy, AMDY is looking really good. AMDY has a total return of 54%. When you factor in the NAV return and you factor in the yield, comes out to 54%, which annualizes to 217%. Like I say, though, NVDY is no slouch at 154% total return for the quarter. All right, guys, was your favorite one on there? I hope it was. Now, my favorite one is ULTY, and I'm pretty, and Blocks. I like Blocks a lot. Blocks isn't old enough to be on this list yet. If your favorite one isn't on the list, drop me a note, and I'll be sure to make sure if it's supposed to be on here, I'll put it on here. Remember, it needs to yield more than 6, and it needs to have been around for at least 3 months to make it a fair calculation. But let's talk about Alti. Why the heck isn't Alti on here if Alti's my favorite? Well, let's take a look at Alti. Let's just compare Alti to AMD. AMD's number one. Let's take a look at ULTY. I mean, there's nothing wrong with ULTY. ULTY though, that doesn't have near as much NAV upside. They're catching some. They've gone from $5.86 to $6.01. I just checked the math before the show. That comes out to about 2.5% NAV return, nearly 3%. I think it was 2.89, nearly 3% NAV return for the quarter, which is decent. Right? And they have like 115% yield, which is more than decent. But there's better choices out there, at least this past quarter. And if we're just comparing it to AMD, you can see AMD did quite a bit better. But Alti is no slouch. You got 26% total return for a quarter. That annualizes to 103%. There are no losers here. There's just ones that have relative higher performance. If we go to the main database, which we can, let's go to the main database and see some of the other ones didn't make it. KQQQ came in 21st. I mean, that's a really good one. There's nothing wrong with that. Maxi's a great one. QQY, I talked about QQY a bunch in my show this morning. QQY has really high yield. It doesn't have as great as upside as some of these other ones, but it's only because of the high yield. QDTE is a great one. MSFO is good. All of these are good. FIBI, XYLG can have a purpose. WDTE also from Defiance. Then we have FEPI from Rex. Let's talk about FEPI. Now, FEPI is real similar to GPTY. FEPI didn't make the list, and GPTY did make the list, despite the fact that they have similar stocks. Well, let's look into that. Let's run a GPTY test against a FEPI from Rex Shares. And I like FEPI. A lot of folks do. It's a good one. You can see GPTY is dominating it this quarter. Let's look at the NAV return of GPTY. Went from 39 to 45. That's pretty good. Well, FEPI's no slouch. It went from 41 to 44. It didn't quite get as much NAV return as GPTY. But here's the other thing that really hurt FEPI compared to GPTY and why it didn't make the list, because it had lower NAV return and it had a lower yield. So I think on a relative basis, I think GPTY is a better choice, at least this last quarter. Now, remember, this list is not indicative of future performance, not at all. There's no way to predict the future, of course. Hopefully your favorite fund made it to the list. And like I say, if it didn't, there's always next week. Remember, this isn't an absolute index. This is a relative index. I'm comparing the 100 ETFs I have in here against each other. So even if the market's doing poorly, something will be doing better on a relative basis. And I would expect it to be the ones that have the lower yield. All right, guys. I appreciate you all for being here, and I hope you have a great evening. I'll talk to you later.